Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Let's Talk Azure podcast with your hosts, Sam.
And Alan.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How are you? How was your weekend?
My weekend was good, thank you. We've obviously had quite a busy time in the world of Apple. Apple's WWDC has kicked off now. So, yeah, there's lots of updates coming from there because I do some work. Well, not unfortunately, but Alan would say that. Not just on Microsoft products. So lots of new and exciting updates from them. How about you? Have you been busy?
Yeah, it's been a fairly busy weekend. Social distancing and seeing family. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Like our week, there's obviously we cannot moan whatsoever, because we have our health and everybody around us we've been very fortunate where the part of the world that we live in that hasn't been, too badly affected by the pandemic, has it? It's been quite, it's. I mean, we still definitely have been impacted, and we've been in lockdown like everybody else. But it's just, it's just a strange old time, obviously, at the moment. But I do get the semblance that not just with what the government's doing, but with work and things like that, things are starting to slowly come back to life, especially for me, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the weeks have been pretty busy through COVID anyway. For myself, looking at the security and getting people remote working, etc.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Right. So what are we talking about today, Alan?
So we're talking about citizen developers. What's this podcast called?
This is called The Rise of the Citizen Developer. And it's an aptly named title because we seem to be giving these people more power. So we've got a bit of a Star Wars-esque theme going on.
I like it.
Right. Should we just jump in then and start, sort of discussing what citizen developers are? We're just going to take you sort of through. It might be that in your organization you might not be have access to citizen developers at the moment, but it's definitely something that is happening with digital transformation. We're seeing more and more citizens developers over time, and it's something that we wanted to talk about because we feel it's important for IT to understand sort of the benefits of having citizens developers in the organization. So, Alan, what is a citizen developer?
So, citizen developer, in my view, I mean, I could technically class myself as one because I'm not a pro developer like yourself.
Thank you.
But yeah.
I'll pay you afterwards.
Yeah. I look forward to that. So they're within the organization, people, standard users, not necessarily IT people, able to do no code, low code development is how I see it, and being able to help fix or plug those like small issues or processes they maybe want to automate.
Yeah, I think it's sort of where there's sort of pockets or there's teams of people that are working. They traditionally have business process issues that they might want to automate. Let's say they've got a quite a mundane task that they want to automate, like sending a report every month, or when an Excel spreadsheet's updated or something. At the moment, somebody would manually go and create that report, right? And the whole point of citizen developers is that these are people that are in different job functions to standard IT versus IT or software development, that use these no code or low code solutions, however you want to call it, and platforms to actually fix the business problems that they've got by themselves in a self-service manner, right? And they are the ones that know their challenges the best, and given the tools, they can obviously fix those problems.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily automation. It could be visualizing data or in effect presenting data in basic applications.
Yeah. So why do you think citizen developers have actually come about? Where do we think, why is there the need for citizen developers?
So I think there's obviously a lot of some sort of units within companies, HR, finance, um, probably have some small things they need to sort out. Like we said, like a bit of automation or just some small basic apps that they might need instead of sort of spinning up a full project with IT to get a third party in or in-house development from pro developers. It becomes quite expensive potentially. So this is the kind of thing that with the tools that are out there, being able to do it themselves, or with some assistance from IT,
Yeah.
to fix those small problems, those quick wins in some instances anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're talking about, there's a multitude of downsides to custom development, right? Or even maybe even bringing online some sort of SaaS solution, right? With a SaaS solution, you got that integration issue, right? How does that SaaS platform communicate with the data that's on, well, inside? I would say premise, but I don't know what you refer it to, but your online entity, your Office 365. How do you authenticate against it? How do you have to copy all your data into a SaaS provider? What happens to that data when it's there? So a way to not use SaaS is to obviously go back to a more traditional approach where you're building bespoke software, but then you have, all of the ops cost of managing the infrastructure that runs it and the capex cost of building it and licensing and finding a development team that understands your business, and like you say, it could cost you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds to do that, dependent on the scale of the project. Where low code comes in as it says, okay, well, you know, if we're talking about the Power Platform as our quotes low code platform, Power Platform is already inside. If you're on Office 365, it's already inside your organization, isn't it? We already have the security enforced, the governance of the data, and all of those different things. And it's almost self-serve from that point of view, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, I mean, as the example of Power Platform, it's in your 365 environment, so I guess it's within your cloud perimeter,
Yes.
where your data is, where you can put
Yeah.
the security controls in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So should we just do a quick? I mean, I don't want to talk too much in depth about the Power Platform, but should we just have a quick overview of sort of the different facets of the Power Platform?
Yeah, so there's three areas within it. So there's Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate, or Microsoft Flow as it was called before Ignite last year. So Power BI is the ability to show your data and visualize it in a nice way, and to build dashboards and share them within the organization. And the data source can just be an Excel spreadsheet within 365 as an example, or SharePoint lists, or the common data service CDS. Um,
Yeah. So I suppose in that scenario, just to give a actual working example, if you had if you're an accountant, and I'll use accountants because I know a few of them. So if you've got the same reports that you run each month, and maybe you've got a process like a lot of accountancy is still done in Excel, and you might have specific Excel workbooks that you duplicate each month and you create new revisions of and things like that. So it's all the same format, and they've already got their processes built. Built out, over years of refining them. But then Power BI allows you to connect straight to that Excel spreadsheet and put a data model on top of it. Well, you can automate that or automate it, but it's pretty simplistic to do. And then you can do dashboards and reporting off the top of that. And then you can embed those anywhere you want. So you can embed them, SharePoint, Teams, all over, Dynamics, all over the place, can't you? So that
yeah,
the rest of the business has visibility on it. And then once that spreadsheet updates or you create a new revision or however your process works, then that dashboard's updated for you automatically, right?
yep. So there's a sync process that so it's able to collect the data and then
Yeah.
visualize it as and when.
And I think it's just good to say that the Power Platform is fully managed, right? There is no, I mean, there is a secure. We'll talk about data and and access authorization security is obviously one part of it, but the actual Power Platform itself is, from our side, self-serve. We don't worry about it staying up. That's Microsoft's problem. That's what we pay our license fees for.
Yeah, they patch it, they update it, they bring new features, etc.
Yeah.
And just to say on it is that you can bring data in from your on-premise sources. So if you've got an on-premise application that it backs onto SQL as an example, you can query that data there and visualize it. So you can start building dashboards for on-premise CRMs or finance systems, I guess, as an example.
Okay. So what about Power Apps?
So Power Apps is kind of what it sounds like. It's applications, but it's no code, low code development. And again, you can visualize. You could build something like a contact directory where you can store information into it, and it could be just an Excel spreadsheet it updates. Or another example is if you're in a event, which may not happen anytime soon, but if you were at an event, you could have the staff or the people running that your stand could have a Power App that allows you to input data from the people that come to the stand with their questions, and that could be put into a spreadsheet, etc., and live, instantly updated for someone in the back end to then contact them, within minutes, I guess, if you really wanted to.
And I think one thing to say about Power Apps is they work across platform, right? You can view them on the web. You can also view them on mobile. And on mobile, Power Apps is ever evolving. It's, I would say, relatively new, right? It's not brand new. It's definitely, it's not in public preview or anything like that. It's been out for a while now. But every single revision, we get more and more functionality that can be done inside of Power Apps. And you can take advantage of native hardware features. So you can scan barcodes, take pictures, and you can do a variety of things that a standard web app, it would take, serious effort to implement those in a bespoke native application, right? So,
yeah, and the interface for building these applications is fairly simple. I mean, I do it from I'm not a developer. Well, I'm a citizen developer, I guess I classed as, but
I'll let you be one of those.
Yeah, thanks. It's almost drag and drop. I need a new text box. Okay, let's drag it over here. Let's put what data I want in it. There is some code to it, and using variables and if commands and things like that. But
and I think just to say as well is it is extensible. So if you are more, if you do have a client that is inside of Power Apps, you can build custom components for it, and you can extend it out using the frameworks that Microsoft provide, which is again super powerful, right? It's awesome.
And then I guess the other one is the Power Automate, then, isn't it, in Flow? So that is in effect building, as it sounds, flows of actions that you may want to take. So that could be, as Sam said earlier, a spreadsheet gets updated. So then you want to look for the new row in that Excel spreadsheet, and then you want to send an email. Or the other example is a new file enters into a SharePoint site, and then you want to send a message to the team owner or the SharePoint site owner to say there's a new update to the report or anything like that.
So we're really talking about automation here, aren't we? We're talking about business process automation. And there is now Power Virtual Agents as well for RPA. So if you really do want to get into sort of intelligent workers, automated workers, and that sort of thing, they've got all of that sort of functionality there. I think just to also recap with all of this, the part that underpins all of this is the Common Data Service, which is a data store which allows you to push and pull data into it from any of these different systems, right? It sort of underpins. That's why Power Apps can, everything's got connectors, right? And that's the next bit to talk about. But you can, if you put data inside a common data service, it's going to be readily available for other systems that are on the common data service, right? It's the go-to place to store that data.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about the security side of things, it's fairly good with its rollback or RBAC controls there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, definitely. And just another point to make as well: all of these platforms are very connector orientated, aren't they? They're all about not necessarily taking over your organization and saying you need to use this content management system, but there are connectors for the vast majority of large SaaS products that are out there, on-premise data stores, and things like that, right?
So if you want to connect to, the example for an automation thing could be that you connect to Twitter and collect the tweets for your business account, and then they get emailed to someone or posted on Teams, so that you've got a record of what's happening. Or you can do queries on what certain words were used. How do I? So it goes to the support team, exactly, as an example.
If you imagine like that, if in a marketing department, being able to pull down all your mentions and replies from your customers and put them into an Excel spreadsheet, right? So that you can then report on them and then use them in your marketing reports, and say, right, customer sentiment at the moment is good, it's bad, this is where we need to improve. It's just taking out that mundane, having to go through Twitter and get all that information out, right?
That's a good example, in that you could have Power Automate collect those tweets, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then Power BI do a dashboard to show you what the trends are and things like that.
Yeah, most common keywords, things like that.
How many tweets in a day?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know there are obviously products out there that serve that purpose, aren't there? But it might just be that you maybe don't need to procure a piece of software to do that, because you might only actually care about 2 or 3 different, metrics that are important to your team and specific to your business. You might be like, I only care about these users, and just focus on those metrics. So yeah, I still think it's really powerful. So we obviously have got an idea of what low code looks like and the platform that's there. I mean, I suppose the next question is how can we allow this development to happen? I say allow, but encourage this development is probably the better way, because as IT professionals, front and center of our mind is security and governance, right? Making sure that the data stays within our perimeter, like we've spoken about, because it's all well and good people giving these people these tools, but if it's not secure and it's not robust, then it's just not going to end very well. So I suppose from your perspective, Alan, what do you think the steps are to get your teams ready to maybe try citizen development?
So there's some things that you can do within the Power Platform. To basically, you can specify which connectors certain users can have. So you may want to disable all the cloud service, the cloud storage ones like Box, Dropbox, unless you've got business accounts in those, to help reduce the potential for data to be exfiltrated. That's probably a good first step, but you probably want to look at how data can be stored in the Common Data Service, the CDS, because there's a lot of RBAC controls in there. You can specify certain people can see certain columns in an entity. An entity is in effect a table, isn't it, Sam? I think.
Yeah, it's very similar to it's like a NoSQL data store. But yeah, if you imagine, an entity is just it's just like a table's worth of data of entities, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you can specify, people can only see certain types of row based on, it could be a customer, I guess, or a department, or one of the columns based on that, filtering it in effect. But also you can do it against the columns, so you might be able to see the customer and their account number, but you might not be able to see their address, as an example.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I guess it's more around maybe a lightweight training, or just showing some of what you can do, the power of it.
Yeah, I think that that sort of training element and support element is really important, right? Because structuring how these teams, maybe not IT coming in to build everything, right? Because
Yeah,
IT's got enough to do, right? But just talking with users to say this is the functionality that we're licensed for, right? You might already be licensed for a lot of this and you might not be using it, right? You're paying for it and not using it. So I think that training aspect, I mean, it really depends on the size of your organization, because you yourself might not actually use the Power Platform. Well, you might use the Power Platform, but not like a citizen developer. So you might not have much experience in it. So that's where you could potentially look to a partner. And that's obviously one of the massive benefits of the Microsoft ecosystem is its partner network. You can look out to a partner and say, okay, I'd like you to come in and help us with, Power BI, or to give us some training on how to use these tools, right?
yeah, and it could even just be to assist in a single application to show the power of it, to fix that small problem that might be in one of the departments, to show them how to do that development, but also again, like I said, to show the benefit, to then help encourage it across the business, and reduce the amount of IT in interaction, I guess, to save them some time to get on with the more important securing the infrastructure, etc.
Yeah, and I think that is that's my sort of take on it, is that if we as the IT professionals give users a sort of a safe playground. I call it a playground because this is business. This is like adding actual value, right?
Mm-hmm.
They will be able to. They could maybe envision how they see the tools fixing their problems, because it's not necessarily for us to come in and go, "This is going to fix this for you," because we're not, on the battlefield, so to say, every single day. Like, we don't know and understand all of these business, these business departments, the inner workings of them. So I think that's really important. And I have seen in larger organizations like governments, local government organizations, where some users just take command and charge of this anyway, right? I've talked to I've had conversations with accounting team clients where they are already using Power BI, right? And then they turn to somebody like me and say, okay, we've got to where we can go with Power BI because we've already the analogy that I was once told, I can't remember who told it to me, but Power BI is like PowerPoint for data. And it very much is, right? And that's not to undermine Power BI because it's an insane product, but it's kind of as simple as, okay, I want a pie chart here, I want a chart here, I want to slice this data, I want to pivot this data here, and like accounting teams especially, they kind of already know that because it's all in the same language of Excel, right? But where they get stuck is where they maybe want to polish things and make things look good, and they don't know how to now embed that Power BI, right? Because they're using the free version of Power BI. And it's more around, it's not necessarily me coming in and saying, I have done it where I've helped to define the data model, like a more complex data model, right? Because it's got too advanced for, not that they can't conceptualize it, but there's just some things that they haven't got the time to learn because they are still accountants, right? But they do just get to that natural point where they're like, okay, now we need we've tested, we've validated our assumptions, we can see the value in this product. Let's get somebody in to help us take it to the next level, right?
Yeah, and even though you're bringing in pro developers, or people that are are experts at the Power Platform, those engagements aren't going to be potential. There shouldn't be big engagement because the platform's there. You're not building it from scratch. You're just assisting in the data model, the visualizations, the more
Yes.
complex stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not building, like, for instance, as a developer, when we're talking about visualizations for Power BI, I'm not building the Power BI platform, am I, from scratch, like a visualization platform from scratch. I'm basically, somebody's coming to me and saying, I want to be able to visualize something else, these KPIs in a different way. Can you build me a custom visualization for that? And then Microsoft go to me as a developer. Here's a framework for you to build those visualizations. Follow our best guidance and code structures and our documentation, and you can slice and visualize that data however you like. Yeah. So that's why it's kind of a match made in heaven, really, because we can come in and do these engagements where it's like you say, it's not 6 months or a year, right? It's we're talking days and weeks instead of months and years, aren't we? I think that's the point.
Yeah, and I guess you've kind of answered the question we were trying to get out of here was what happens about the pro developers like yourself. Does it mean that you're not going to be used as much? But you've kind of suggested that that's not the case, because there's still there's also only so far people can get to, and sometimes that's enough for them. But
Yeah,
when you want
yeah.
to, yeah,
I mean, there's many developers that just specialize in one of those technologies, right?
yeah,
I know loads of just Power BI developers. I mean, Power BI is a weird one because it also takes into account data analysis, and data processing and ETL transformations and things like that. So you've got this more data architect, as well as development and visualization. So it's a bit of a hybrid role, really, or you just specify in data modeling or something. But yeah, like these citizen developers have their own full-time jobs, right? They're just trying to look potentially at fixing some of their most mundane tasks. And I say mundane, I mean that's not to discredit the value that these systems bring, right? They bring absolutely incredible value, if they are implemented in the correct way. I think my only reservation, in the past was, how do we secure that? How is it done correctly? Like, how do we maintain our security perimeter?
yeah, and that's probably one thing to mention is that Power Platform really is designed for the internal applications, and you can surface it to external people via, I think it's the portals
Yeah.
solution, but it's generally for internal processes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's what it's all geared around, and I think that's where it can add the most value. Because if you're talking about a public system, there are a lot of SaaS platforms, content management systems. There's loads of stuff already out there to assist you with that. Do you know what I mean? It's internal. It's getting inside of the guts of your business, and Office 365 is already there, isn't it? So well, if you've done that transformation, if you've moved to the cloud and you've been through that process, a lot of companies still haven't, obviously, but you can do Power BI on premise, can't you, and things like that. So they do have different methodology to get it into like an on-premise environment.
Yeah, and you're talking about those mundane tasks as such. I'll give an example. A project manager having to do burn down reports or timesheet reports to a customer, having to run through the timesheet app and collect all that data about, when they've done this project, what time they've put against it, the comments, etc.
Yeah.
You're able to build a Power App to say, this resource, this customer, I want between this date, click submit. It goes to a Power Automate that goes and grabs the data from the data, from the application if it's supported. And then you can do things like populate a Word template with all that data, and that process for that project manager is probably like 1 or 2 days, if not 3, trying to get through all that data potentially.
Yeah.
And now it's done within 5-10 minutes.
And that's that part of the project manager's role isn't the valuable part, right? It's the insight that they can give the business, and the actions that they take every day to manage those projects. It's not the reporting is critical and important, and I'm not discrediting that whatsoever. But to use such an amount of of a person's time is, when we can automate things, does seem a bit tragic. But then we can't spend months implementing these systems and potentially getting them wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to bring that on again, that process, potentially you've got things that like DocuSign is one of the connectors. Potentially you could actually PDF that document, and then send it directly out to the customer to get a digital signature. You could potentially do this with. I mean, there are systems out there, like you said. You potentially could do stuff for signing T's and C's and things like that this way.
Yeah,
potentially. And like you said, there's other apps out there.
For sure.
Or SaaS apps that do this stuff. It's
but there is, but you've got to remember that it like in my world, there's a lot of people that don't use SaaS apps because of they've got hundreds of them. Especially in large organizations, they cost a lot to procure, long contracts. Trying to prove the value, and all of those things. So sometimes you do just want a small bespoke widget, but you don't want all the hassle that bespoke development.
And a SaaS app might provide more functionality that you might not need right now that you're paying for.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
Again, the data may have to leave into that application to be able to use it as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, with the Power Platform, you may already be licensed for it, and it might just be a case of configuring what is there and using what you're already paying for, right? Instead of having to go and procure something.
Yeah, so we probably should talk about how you get it, I guess, as well. So it's part of the Office 365 licenses. Definitely in the Office 365 E3 or A3 for your education. I'm not too sure about the frontline workers ones. I think some of them you can. There has been some new releases of the license or updates to the frontline licenses. And Power BI Pro is part of the Office 365 E5 licenses, isn't it? But you can buy it separately. The benefit of the Pro, from what I remember, is that you can publish it internally into the Teams and SharePoint and share with other people. I think that's right, Sam, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And some of the connectors are premium, so sometimes you have to pay for an extra license to use them. But in the example that I gave about the PM, 3 days worth of time is cheap, is more expensive than spending X. I don't know what the pricing is, but say £10 a month to access to that premium license. It could cost way more than that for those 3 days for a PM.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cool. Should we wrap it up there with citizen developers? TLDR, we love citizen developers. I think we should empower them, to, where it makes sense. I mean, not all organizations are mature enough to be at the stage. It's an ever evolving thing, but I think there is definite value that can be had from using it.
Yeah, and I think there's some quick configurations to reduce the risk of data leaving and securing it. That means that IT departments don't have to worry, be too scared of it. Is enhancing the business. And it's all, again, it's all within Office 365, so it's all under control.
Yeah, no, that's great. Should we move on to some news?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to go through too many bits of news because, well, from my side, there isn't a lot of it. Well, I mean, there is, but this is just bits and bobs that we, feel are the most exciting to us. Not necessarily important, but sort of exciting.
Yeah, and you're probably still ingesting all the build stuff from 2 or 3
Yeah,
weeks ago.
I'm kind of I'm not done with Azure updates, but I am. Yeah, I mean, build was a few weeks ago now, but it's just the volume of again, hats off to everybody that was involved in that, but it's just the amount of new announcements that came out of that is incredible. So Al, do you want to take it away with conditional access?
Yeah, so conditional access. It's been out for a little while, some of this, but the report only mode was introduced. So that allows you to create a conditional access rule, which a conditional access rule is basically specifying how a user can access a application integrated with Azure AD. So for most people, that will be Office 365. But if you integrate other apps, it can be those as well. So this could be their location, the type of device they're on, what group they're in, that kind of thing. But beforehand, you had to kind of make it go live. There's no staging or testing with this. So it allows you to test that conditional access rule. So it only reports it saying, I would activate this, or block this access, or allow this access.
Yeah, because wasn't when we first talked about this, it was I sort of said to you, well, do you test your conditional access rules in production? And you're like, yeah, well, I can do you can do a check. You could do a check before, couldn't you, to see if somebody would be caught by the conditional access rule, right?
Yeah, so you can do a what if, but you can scope the conditional access rule. So you could do testing in the live with like real people.
Yeah.
So you can prove it, but you're not going to catch every scenario. There's always going to be someone working remotely that's you've not thought of.
So this is basically a way to define those conditional access rules and then monitor them for a period of time before you go live with them.
Yeah. So the bit that they sort of introduced this, because report only mode was there, and you could see it in the logs on sign-in logs that someone would have triggered it, kind of thing. They brought this insight and reporting bit out recently. So basically, it's like a dashboard for you where you can drill into that data visually. So you can click on like a conditional access rule, and it will tell you that it would have got hit 50 times or 50,000 times. But that insight and reporting isn't just for the report only mode; it's for all your conditional access rules. So you might be able to see that actually one of your rules is never being hit because something above it it's always catching it. So it can tweak your rules at the same time. So it's pretty good.
Cool. No, that sounds like definitely a worthy upgrade. That's for sure. And there's some couple of Defender changes, aren't there?
Yeah. So I mean, this today. Microsoft Defender ATP for Android has been gone public preview.
Nice.
So it was announced at RSA in March, I think it was, that they were developing Defender ATP for Android and iOS. There has been some private previews for Android, but now it's gone public today. So there is some Microsoft documentation, a blog post that you can go to see how to set that up. But it means you're bringing that protection to your mobile devices. And what's being brought is, in effect, malware scanning to the device, but also web protection. So it's looking at SMS phishing and WhatsApp phishing and all that sort of stuff, let alone the emails open up on your device. So yeah, it's really good that's coming. The other bits are there's some new alert pages for incidents within the Defender ATP, so they've updated them to improve the focus of the incident. And the other thing that they've recently brought out is that they're on Windows 10. They're able to do scanning of the firmware of the device, so the UEFI. To look for rootkits and stuff, so you know that it's a secure boot and there's no code in there.
Nice.
Trying to get at exfiltrate any data there.
Yeah, Defender ATP is definitely lots of updates coming out of there recently, right?
Yeah, and there's no additional cost to that mobile bit. It's part of the Windows 10 Enterprise E5 license.
Nice. So again, just extra value for the same price. Yeah.
Yep.
Like it. Really like it. So yeah, I've only got one bit of news for this episode. Like Al said, a bit not blown away, but yeah, by build, obviously, lots of updates. We did a whole episode on that, so it was pretty much a news episode, wasn't it? The only bit that I've got is Azure Maps Creator, and what this basically does is it allows you to create your own maps, and it's generally used for indoor maps. So, for instance, if you've got if you're doing a conference or something like that, you can build your own maps inside of Azure Maps. And what's the real interesting thing about it is that these maps are private to your organization. So these aren't maps that, it's not like you're going to publish the blueprint of your building online, right? But you might want to create a map. Let's say you want to create a map for your SharePoint, so people know how to move around your campus or your building, and you can create those maps and then use Azure Maps and the Azure Maps SDKs to embed them wherever you want. And the maps are that can be produced. Sorry, the maps that can be reduced are really visual. They look great, and they can also flow in data from external data sources. So I'll give you an example. You could build an indoor map for your air conditioning system, and then you could show in all of your air conditioning zones. So, like in each room, you could say what the current temperature is in those rooms. So you can see which rooms are using potentially more energy, and that sort of information. So you can overlay different sets of data on top of it, which is really good. And there is also for VR experiences, you can also embed geospatial anchors in it as well. So for your mixed reality and virtual reality integrations, you can have that as well. So yeah, and just another part just to mention as well is they have also partnered with other technology companies that do sort of indoor GPS and IoT systems as well. So to get that navigation inside of the building. So for instance, if you loaded the map on a phone, it could potentially tell you where you are inside of a building where you've got no signal, right? No external GPS signal or anything like that. So yeah, it's a bit of a, not necessarily a ground. I just think it's for the enterprise. It's going to add another level of visualization. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, meeting room 2 is on the second floor and the 8th door on the right. Do you know what I mean? You could actually visualize that in a better way for your organization.
That's really good.
It's really good. Yeah, and I picked it out because I don't think Azure Maps doesn't seem to get that much love. I mean, it does, but yeah, I just never really see it in the updates. So it was quite interesting to see that they've done it, and I think it's in public. Let me just double check. It doesn't say anything about a public preview or anything like that. So yeah, but there's documentation already how to use the creator to create indoor maps. So I think that pretty much wraps it up, doesn't it, Al? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think we've covered the citizen developer and the pros. Bit of news, mostly around Defender, because they're just ploughing the money into that. It's so good.
For sure. Yeah, the development is really rapid on that, isn't it? So yeah, just also everyone, thank you everybody for listening. We can see you in our statistics that we can see people are listening, people are subscribing, which is really good. We didn't really make this podcast for ourselves. We just wanted to be able to share our views out to other people, so it's great that people are listening, right?
Yeah, and we're not even promoting it, are we yet? We're not.
We're
just seeing how it goes.
We are just seeing how it goes. We want to just make sure that we can stick to a regular upload schedule. I would just also like to say this is the second time we've recorded this podcast. Our first one had some technical difficulties, so fingers crossed this one's better. So that's why we've been a little bit delayed getting it out. We don't have a topic for the next episode yet, do we, Alan? No. We'll think about that, and that should be available in the next. We're trying to hit this every 2 weeks upload schedule, aren't we? So yeah. Cool. Right. So thanks very much for listening, everyone, and we'll speak to you later.
Yep. Catch everyone later. See ya.